some maneuvering area. They are teaching us tolerance, they are teaching us some kind of freedom. They are encouraging us to go to the deeper layers of the Islamic teachings, as was the aim of the Mu'tazilites themselves. They tried to say that we should go beyond the surface and digging the deeper layers. How a mentality which its religiosity based on Ash'arite could be a suitable paradigm for somebody like Iqbal, who is Mu'tazili and who thinks that his fundamental understandings of the Islamic teachings could be compatible with someone like Jalaluddin Rumi. Is it the fact that besides new Mu'tazilites, we are in need to somehow find that space of intellectual maneuvering inside the deeper layers of Islamic teachings as Orafa did? Can Orafa help us to understand these new Mu'tazilite better? There are ideas that the mystic approach is against intellectuality. But a figure like Iqbal, an intellectual, is relying on that. These are points that I thought, while I am unfortunately absent, may be useful if you can elaborate on that. Because I was witnessing the different discussions here, and there are corners, and our colleagues here are going to do some kind of research and write and finish their proposal here. Thank you.
Inshallah. I ask at the beginning simple question, but it is it takes a semester. I need to go through that, and in some part of it, I am not an expert. I mean, I have some general ideas, but first of all, I have to say that Orafas and Sufis, they are not Asharite. There are some similarities between the ideas of Ash'arite and Orafa or Sufis, but these are not the same. It is like Ijtihad has different meanings. For Shia, it has its own meanings. For Wahhabis, has its own meanings. And for no Mu'tazila, has its own meanings. And therefore, in my humble understanding, for instance, Ash'ari, they defend the idea of Jabr, predestination, or determinism somehow. I mean, it is a long discussion in Ash'ari, and they come up with the idea of caste, these things, I mean. But what they say about the same topic, it is not Jam. It is what we call it Tawheed Af'ali, or the unity in practice. I mean, anyhow, any believer, I mean Muslim, non-Muslim, whatever, they have to have some kind of explanation about the divine and temporal.
Sorry.
And about, I mean, the practice or action or faith of the divine and its relation to our action. Because we cannot be as a border for his essence or his action or practice. And therefore, whenever they come up with this delicate definition of the Tawhid Af'ali. I don't know how to if you translate it to English. No, we may say unity in action. I don't know whether it delivered the deep meaning of that or not. It's verse in my understanding.
Excuse me, unfortunately, as I have to leave. Yes, to give you an ease, I don't want to ask you to go to the theological discussions of Warafa. What I meant, the outcome of their collective approach as far as the approach of New Mu'tazilis are concerned. First of all, if I said Warafa or Ash'ari, I correct myself, that's not a correct proposition. The proposition that if we want to put Jalaluddin Rumi, for example, the one that Iqbal is referred to, I'm not talking about Hallaj or rather, Iqbal is not referring to Hallaj. My main topic is Jalaluddin Rumi. Jalaluddin Rumi is above being Ash'arite or Mu'tazilite. But if we want to put him somehow in one of these boxes, he would fit Ash'arite. For example, you said that Ash'arite Mu'tazili think that it is an obligatory for God to fulfill His promise. But Jalaluddin Rumi said that Bar shawq khub ruyan wajib wafa nabashad. And this is exactly Ash'arite opinion. Bar shawq khub ruyan wajib wafa nabashad. Ey zard ruy ashiq to sabr kon wafa kon. We cannot consider any kind of obligation for God. He can fulfill His promise or not. There, in many cases, you see that Jalaluddin is pushing toward that. But at the same time, while having this kind of theological background, what I want to say that Iqbal, as an example that you mentioned, I'm not going to say Ahmad Khan and all that. Iqbal, for example, does not feel any kind of obligation to refer to the theological ideas of Jalaluddin, whether Ash'ari or Mu'tazili. He doesn't enter to this kind of Tawheed, unity of Af'al and Sifat. From him, he drives some kind of courage to, as you use the word penetrate, to use the penetrate, to penetrate into the intellectual base of what we are going to do, our deeds, our understanding, and things like that. What I want to conclude is that whether we want to understand the motives of New Mu'tazilite, not the theological ideas, for example, the issue of the Quran being makhluk, in the mal interpretation, I'm not going to go to that discussion. But how are we going to live in modern time? How are we going to find compatible understanding with the needs of human beings in modern time? Iqbal find Rumi to be a very good source because he's relying on the very solidly on the Islamic teachings. In fact, can we say that some kind of feeling, some freedom to challenge ideas, while on the other hand we are thinking of some kind of a spiritual submission in the general realm? Is it going to be an essence for New Mu'tazilite or not?
Not really. As much as I know about them, their intention, general. Because it's a wide range of people. We are talking about people from different countries, different backgrounds. for about 150 years, I mean, up to our time. But to sum up, as much as I read their works, I don't think their intention was that. I mean, the way that, it is my own conclusion, I mean, the way that I presented, it was my understanding. It was a kind of reaction to the modern world and to different aspects, different questions, different situations. Anyhow, as you mentioned, we need to live. It is not in our hand. We do live at present time with our own context and situation and questions and difficulties and complications and so on and so forth. And they tried, because the main challenge in Islamic land during the last 2 centuries, it does come from the West. I mean, the main challenge. And they try somehow to make some sort of compatibility between these two, Islam and West. And for them, this new Mu'tazila, and it is my evaluation from them, they thought that to practice or to believe Islam as to believe and to practice, I mean 2 dimensions, 2 level, 2 sides. To believe and to practice as the traditional way, it is not possible for us anymore. We have to do something.
Yeah.
For them it was as such. And for Iqbal also to some extent, but Iqbal, it is not an extreme neo-Mu'tazilite. He is in the middle. And Iqbal, he does follow somehow his predecessor, and his line goes to Waliullah Dehlavi somehow, under some of his influence, teaching. You know Shah Waliullah Dehlavi, he does have a book, it is called Hujjatullah al-Balighah. The introduction of that book is very important. The rest of the book, it is about some 70 pages, 70, 80 pages. The rest of that is a normal Sharia book about prayers, about fasting, about these things. I mean, it is quite normal. I mean, but in this introduction is quite important.
What I want to say that the keyword was said by you here. You said that they realized that they have to do something. Okay, they have to do something.
They have to do something.
They should put forward something new. To come to terms with the modern time, somebody like Iqbal found out that they should bring philosophical understanding, philosophical intellectuality into the realm of our understanding, as the West is implying. On the other hand, somebody like Jalaluddin Rumi is against Fakhr Razi because he said that his approach is purely philosophical. He said that if philosophy was acceptable to understand religion, then Fakhr Razi
and he was Shaykh al-Ash'ari.
Yes.
Fakhr Razi.
And so Rumi is against philosophical approach to understand religion. He relies on intuitive understanding, love, and things like that. Modern time needs philosophical approach. Then what Iqbal does is that he said that ز شعر دلکش اقبال می توان فهمید که درس فلسفه میداد و عشق می‌ورزید. Mean that he introduced himself. If I want to introduce myself, you can see that I am performing loving while I am teaching philosophy. How we can combine these two? Is it possible or not?
I mean, these two, yes, it is possible. I mean,
Therefore,
tell for them.
Thank you so much. Fine. Yes, please.
Sorry, it's just developing from what you were saying. Thank you, Dr. Jalali, for asking this, because I think you really framed it very well. It's a very important question. And since we are speaking about Iqbal, I feel that I must input something. And with the Iqbal, to me, what I feel that perhaps he was very successful, and why he was successful, because he didn't rely solely on a new tafsir of the Quran, like many of the other contemporaries, like Abdul Jamali Afghani did. So with Iqbal, he kind of employed this abstract narrative, this kind of the poetry that we're talking about, and he really appealed to the people. But unfortunately today, it's led to a kind of problem, because he gets quoted as a poet rather than a philosopher. So we have this dichotomy of two opposing things, whereas at the time when people would call Iqbal a poet, he would say, I'm not a poet, don't see me as a poet. So in this sense, can we say, taking from Dr. Jalali, today for people, for something to really appeal to the young generation today, or the contemporary postmodern society, that we need something more than a theological base, something further than this?
To touch their heart, actually. Huh? Yeah. To touch their heart, I mean the young generation.
And this is the reason that people like God doesn't refer to theological basis of the Mu'tazili. They refer to their intellectual effort. Just accepting intellectuality, that's all. Not the theological base.
Because intellectuality without any clear-cut foundations, it would be vain. I mean, for me, it has some basis, solid base. Otherwise, you put intellectuality on what? And this is the problem. None of us have any other choice rather of putting our intellectuality on a base. Solid foundation.
The base is the acceptance of authority of reasoning. This is what it's better to say reasoning is better to say intellect. But intellect is beyond reasoning. Accepting somehow the authority of intellect.
And the question here is that the scope of reasoning. For this Mu'tazila, classical and neo-Mu'tazila, it has limitless. It is limitless.
It's broadless, yeah.
It is broadless. It is without any limitation. And this is the question. Whether intellect or reason has this capacity to reach...
To fly freely.
To fly free. And religion, it is for somehow. You know, what does it mean, aql? Aql, it derives from eqal. And eqal, it is the rope by that you put on an animal, and you do not let that animal, horse or whatever, to go astray. Aql, in Arabic, it is a cry.
Yeah.
Not some tool to fly freely.
Therefore, you need to find another component. And that component, according to Rumi and Iqbal, is love. Therefore, that faculty which gives you, while you are performing intellectuality, you are somehow in the iqal, of the attraction.
I am a rationalist, and
you are?
Yes, I am. And I cannot understand anyhow. But you can understand it, you will follow.
No, I didn't claim that I'm a
But I am a rationalist. Whatever mystical experience, or whatever this sort of emotion or love or vision, it has to be according to the reason. It is my understanding. I cannot, I do not have vision. I am a simple man. Some people, they have some vision, they experience mystical experience. Okay, for them. But the problem for this sort of experience is that how it could be acceptable for you.
But as I have...
And if love in general, I mean by that, love in general, I love this sort of thing, It should be based on reason for me. I'm
Okay, you say that you humbly say,
I'm a sinner, I know.
as I have to escape. You said that humbly. You said that you are not a man of vision, thing like that. I would like to say that I am neither a man of vision or the man of reason or intellect. My job is here to be the devil advocate. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, my question, first of all, to me, the question was, the situation was not very much clear. Forgive me for that. That were you defending, new Mu'tazilites, or
No.
were you rejecting?
No. I just, my talk was I tried to be quite objective and descriptive in my talk, just to describe them without any valuation.
But
I try to explain what's happening the way that I understand.
yes,
it.
but
And if you ask me whether I am in favor or against, yes, I am against. But it was I tried to be objective as I was.
now the second question is obviously, how would you analyze this situation? The classification of different forms of reaction to the West, as you classified them.
Yes.
Okay. So this presumes a very vital and important Muslim experience of colonialism, right? But let's put the things the other way around, and that is what Muslims were basically forced to react to the West, and this enforcement was such that this reaction was from down to upwards, because Muslims were colonized, number one, so they were forced to see what is outside them, what is West in itself. Number two, that when they were put in that situation, so they were down, they were occupied, they were dominated, and the dominance, they have to react. So let's put this situation the other way around, and then how would Muslims would react to a situation where Muslims do not need to know West, number one, and how would they react to that? And would you think that this school of thought right now we have, the traditionalist, the modernist, whatever the classification exists? Okay, so I would like to be, your response on that.
If I understand you correctly, you see these reactions toward colonization or invasion of Muslim land, I think it was in a very surface level of the encounter. This colonization by itself brought to Muslim land a huge different number of ideas. And as Muslims, they reacted to the colonization as a social event, or between two countries and so on and so forth. In the intellectual Muslim community, these new ideas entered, and it forced them to react to the ideas as well. And my classification, these different categories that I have mentioned, it was my understanding from Muslim situation in general. And traditionalists, they come up with their own ideas and the rest of them. But it was not because of colonization. Colonization, as I said, it is very the first layer of this encounter.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you very much for your lecture. And it's nice to sit in your class again.
Thank you.
Yes, my question is because a few days ago, one Dr. Parviz Salmani asked me if I can help him sending some articles of books of Neo-Mu'tazili in Indonesia, And to be honest, I'm not really familiar with this Neo-Mu'tazili. Most of the times, in a very common talk, we label them as the liberalist. And the liberalist movement. And we have many liberal figures. And they are fighting with the Wahhabis on the street. They are fighting in intellectual level with the Shia in Indonesia. Okay, My questions to you is because it seems to me that you I don't know, this is my assumptions, that you try to be critical to them. It's not very clear to me what I read from their writing here and there in the articles and the book published in Indonesia, because nowadays there are many young figures of the liberalists, and what I saw in a very simple mind of my simple mind, that their method of thinking, their thinking methodology is not consistent, you know. So it seems to me their attitudes is only they defending the freedom of thinking, the reasoning, and for doing so they are breaking the rules of logic and methodology, I think, you know. So I need to know, and I'm very thankful if you can help me, what is actually their way of thinking. But because you mentioned they don't have any foundation, and if you may to mention what's the fallacy of their reasoning.
Yeah, anyhow, I might need to repeat myself. They have some foundation. Actually, this reaction, when they see the secular values, I'm not going to use Western values anymore. Secular values. When they see these values, they accepted that these kind of way of life, put it that way, they prefer that to the way of life in the Muslim community, and to change and to do reform in the Muslim community. They very need it is group of Muslims to present a new way of understanding of Islam. For instance, put it that way, a classical Mu'tazilite, as I said, at the time of Mamun, they were quite advocate of religion. They were quite practicing Muslims. I mean, old Mu'tazila. And about the Inquisition time, I mean, Asrul Mihna at the time of Mamun Abbasi, these people, I mean, these rationalists, they impose that on other Muslims, that they have to confess to what we believe. And your belief is, whatever you believe is wrong, and you have to follow us. But the new group of Mu'tazila, they are advocate of liberalism. Yes, it is true. They are advocate of some sort of pluralism somehow. And these ideas, this kind of ideas. And to do so, they very need to find a tool. And that tool, I mean, to reinterpret the text or this, I mean, Islamic sources, was those principles that I have mentioned. That the Islam is the Islamic text, Quran, Hadith, or historical, whatever laws you find in these texts, these laws are not universal. I mean, for every time and every place, it is just for that society. And now we have to present the new laws, and the new laws for them is, for instance, liberalism. For instance, depending to different. And mostly these group of neo-Mu'tazilite that I'm talking about, mostly they are residing in the Western countries, or they educated there. Because we do have two branches. I mean, this Harun Nasruddin, he studied in McGill University. Fazlur Rahman did his study in Durham, in United Kingdom. I mean, and the rest of them. Iqbal Lahori, he was in Germany, and he wrote his thesis there. And